Building a successful business doesn't automatically mean you're building a sustainable life. My guest today built, scaled, and exited a company, but along the way, he discovered that success can come with a hidden cost most entrepreneurs don't talk about. My guest today, Craig Cooke, knows that firsthand. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to The Reluctant Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Mike Conrad, and I'm so glad you're here. Craig is a serial entrepreneur who built and scaled a digital agency through the years of growth, pressure, and complexity, eventually leading to a successful exit. On paper, that's the kind of story many founders aspire to. But as we often talk about on the show, the real lessons of entrepreneurship usually live beneath the surface. In the first segment of the show, Craig and I talk about his entrepreneurial journey, the early struggles, the realities of scaling a company, leadership mistakes, and what it really is like to step away from a business you've built. In the second segment, we explore what came next. Craig has become a strong advocate for conscious leadership and has embraced the practices of Qigong, which he credits with helping him better manage stress, gain clarity, and rethink how entrepreneurs define performance and success. We discuss how that perspective shaped what he now calls business kung fu and what practical takeaways business owners can apply, even if they've never heard of Qigong before. If you're an entrepreneur navigating growth, burnout, or the question of what success is costing you, this conversation with Craig offers a thoughtful and honest perspective. And it all begins right now. Stick around. Craig Cooke, welcome to the program. I'm so glad you're here today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And that's a really cool intro. That's you really put some good work into that. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's easy to put your good work up on a screen. All I do is talk about you, and it just sounds good. So thank you for all the work you did. I just cataloged some of it, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail as we move along. Take us back to the beginning. What originally pushed you to start your first business, and what problem, if any, were you trying to solve at that time?
Yeah, so the timing was 1995, and I'd been playing around with the internet quite a bit for a couple of years at least, just getting online through America Online, if you remember that.
I can still hear the modem connecting in my head.
Yes, that's right.
I remember halfway through an image download that took 35 minutes. My wife or someone, my daughter more than likely, would pick up the phone and break the connection, right? Yeah.
That's right.
So frustrating back then.
At the time, it was 1995, and I was getting online a lot through America Online, getting those CD-ROMs that you get in the mail, and all the interesting complexities with dealing with the internet at the time. And I was also playing music quite a bit with a friend of mine, and I had a passion for music, had a passion for technology. And one time coming home, I stopped at this computer store called Micro Center, and they had a bunch of CD-ROM magazines. I picked one up called Music Bet, and I took it home, and it had all these independent artists on there, bands that I'd never heard of, and you can watch their videos and learn about them. I was like, wow, this is super cool. Wow, this would be great to put online. And I was talking to my friend about it, and then one thing led to another, and we just said, yeah, let's do it, and got another friend involved too. So long story short, we created what was called rhythmnet.com, launched it in 1996, and the problem that we were looking to solve was to level the playing field for independent musicians, because at the time all that was really out there was the radio and MTV, and it was a big music machine, the machine at work, and there's all this talent out there, but people couldn't discover them. So it was a means to help these independents get exposure. And so we built this website where people could discover these artists, listen to their song samples, and purchase their CDs through a secure server way back in 1996, before there was any MP3s, no broadband.
You were Apple Music and Spotify before Apple Music and Spotify.
Yeah, pretty much. It was interesting. But the challenge for us at the time was that, one, very young and naive. I was 25 when I started the company, and I had a business degree, and I taught myself all the tech stuff, and just didn't really know anybody, no connections. The industry was brand new, so there wasn't even a lot of people doing what we were doing anyways as far as internet technology, and barely had any money. Started with $1,300 in a computer, so just really struggled and grinded and just ended up pivoting our model a few times, and eventually really caught some traction, and the business changed as we made adaptations, but it all worked out. It was a good ride.
Awesome. What happened to that company ultimately?
So in 2019, I built it up to an 8-figure business, and was able to sell it to a digital creative agency out of New York City. And really, really super top high-end company, private equity backed. And we sold it on the 23rd year anniversary of being in business to the day, January 2nd, 2019. Wow. And then I stayed on. Yeah, and then I stayed on as CEO, my existing role as CEO, for 3 more years. And
contractually, right? Contractually.
Yes.
Was that hard? Was that hard to be a CEO of a business you no longer own?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it was really interesting. It was a great experience. Overall, it was fine. I mean, there were some interesting challenges that came about. Through just various styles, I would say. But overall, it was a great experience. It was really interesting to interact with people of that high caliber. The company that bought us, and their other companies that they had purchased as well. So we were part of this greater network. So it was cool. It was really interesting. So it's not the same as being your own independent boss, for sure. But the way it was set up, we had a lot of independence still, but we had to we still had to answer to that higher authority. So things got interesting sometimes, but it was good.
Excellent. Like many entrepreneurs, I'm sure the early days weren't always glamorous. What were some of the biggest struggles you faced early on that people don't usually see? What was it like behind the curtain?
Yes, especially I would say the first 5 years was really, really brutal, and that was pretty tough because I had a lot of friends that were into their careers and they were doing well, and here I was like really struggling and hardly making anything. And you meet up with some people, and it always seems okay, but they don't know about the struggles that are happening in the just the mentality and the mental challenge that one could be facing as an entrepreneur. And then it's different once you have this level of success and people see you like, oh wow, your business is doing great and it's booming, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's a whole other type of challenge that you have to contend with mentally, with stress and pressures and obligations, responsibilities of all the different people, clients, employees, vendors, all these different relationships that you have to juggle. People just don't understand the pressure.
Yeah. A lot of companies, this sounds counterintuitive to those who don't run a business, but I'm sure you will relate to this. A lot of companies fail in the middle of a record growth spurt. And ironically, they may be profitable, but they're growing so fast they run out of cash, right? So they go out of business profitably, which makes no sense to the outside world. Your company experienced significant growth over time. Was there a moment when you realized that this is getting real and things fundamentally have to change? And did that growth create growth-oriented problems? And if so, what types of problems? I realize I just asked you 3 questions there, but
I'll lead you.
I'll Sherpa you through them. Yes.
Yeah, all related to growth, essentially. So, and there was different periods where we would grow. It was a lot of slow managed growth, especially the first 10 years or so.
Yeah.
But once we hit around 2012, we really hit a rapid period of growth. We landed on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies in the United States 5 years in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, and which only, from my understanding, 7% of companies out there actually accomplish that. So, and at the same time, during that same time, we actually won Best Places to Work 4 years in a row, which is pretty cool. Because it's hard to grow and keep everybody happy. It's hard to keep everybody happy to begin with. But then when you experience a rapid period of growth, that's a challenge also, outside of what you asked. But when it comes to staying in business, it's takes a lot. You got to really manage by the numbers, because what can happen is you can get ahead of yourself, especially when it comes to hiring staff. There's more work. People are getting stressed. They're feeling the load. We need to hire more people. We need to hire more people. We need to hire more people. Could be true. Looks like that's the case. Not today, not next week, not next month, maybe in 2 or 3 months. Is a lot of those types of conversations that had to be had. And we hit a couple of times some bumps in the road where we got ahead of ourselves, and we had to have some layoffs, which is never fun. It's like the thing I disliked the most.
Me too.
Was going through it. It's just tough. But I'd say, and I think that's where companies go from growing, profitably, as you said, but then all of a sudden they become unprofitable because they get ahead of themselves. And usually it's like, for service-based business, it'd be like a labor issue.
Right.
Getting too many production resources, for example, that are, just eating away at the bottom line because there's just not enough revenue to sustain the amount of hires that have come forward. It's a tough thing to manage. Every business is different and unique, but that would be one of the common challenges in regards to your question.
Yeah, I'm in the manufacturing world, and we build capital equipment, so expensive machines, and they go from $80,000 to $150,000. So growth for us was always, from a cash flow standpoint, catastrophic, because not only did we have the labor side, and we weren't a service business per se, although we had a service arm. Our primary business was manufacturing, but we had to buy inventory. Our machines are rather big, so we had to increase space. We have to increase purchasing and service and all of that, accounting. And, so if we wanted to grow 20% in 1 year, top line revenue, if we wanted to add 20% to top line, we would have to invest 120% into it and then grow into that, right? So we were always investing in our growth, and the amount of investment we had to put in frequently exceeded at any given period the revenue that was coming in, because we're buying the next year's worth of growth and paying for it with this month's worth of growth, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
I came to conclude that rapid growth, rapid uncontrolled, unplanned growth, is a luxury most small businesses can't afford. Yet, when I was new in business, I thought the solution to every problem was we just need to be bigger. Of course, not only does the tide raise all ships, it raises them higher than than it would otherwise. So, I always found growth to be a double-edged sword. You want to grow. You want to grow at a rate you can afford and you can sustainably grow.
Yes. There's kind of a saying like sales solves all problems. For a time.
Okay, hold on. You froze. You're frozen right now. There you go.
Did I freeze up?
You just said, it's been said, sales solves all problems. Just take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, sales solves all problems for a time, I would say. Yes, you grow, you get more sales in, and you're good. Everything's great. But, wait a second. What about 3 months from now, 6 months from now, as the expenses continue? It's kind of this. I always would refer to it as a mighty dragon. When we were small, it was just a little baby dragon that just hatched out of an egg, right? And then as we grew and got bigger, that dragon grew and it would be very hungry. and it just kept getting more hungry and more hungry to wanting to eat constantly, right? It
Yes.
became a big, giant, mighty dragon that's
Yeah.
constantly hungry
Yeah.
that you got to feed.
Your job is feeding the
Yeah,
monster, right? Which
yeah,
which is
yeah.
which becomes very easy to let go of other things. Like, I'm not saying this happened to you, but serving the customer best, providing the best quality, providing the best level of service, providing on-time deliveries. You're so busy feeding the monster that sometimes you're feeding them things that become negative on the other side, right? You solve one
Yes,
problem and create three more.
that's
That
right. That's right. There's a
that's
lot of things to manage.
yeah. So I asked you, eventually you sold the company. I asked you if working as the CEO for a company you no longer own was hard. What was it like to actually emotionally to sell the company? And you know, were you like, oh, thank God, or was it bittersweet? Or walk me through that.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely an emotional experience. That was a brutal time too. Very, very tough. Um, and once we had a deal on the table, it went really fast. I think I think we got the deal done in like 2.5 months, maybe 2 months, something like that. It was really fast, and that was a lot of pressure. So when the deal actually funded, it was a big relief. Actually, it was like this big weight got lifted off my shoulders
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. One was just the pressure of the moment, it just that process and that sell, but then also we'd been at it for like 3 years trying to get the company sold. So just to have that moment where it suddenly happened was joyful but relieving. It was quite something actually. Yeah, it was really quite a feeling. It was cool. It was neat. No regrets and no like, oh, I'm like attached to my baby. And it was time for it. Yeah, that little baby dragon had grown to an adult. It was time for it to go on its way. Get out of the house.
Puff the
Be on your
magic.
own.
Jackie Paper's not going to be around to play with Puff anymore, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I was okay with that aspect of it. But yeah, it was definitely an emotional experience, but a lot of joy, a lot of relief.
So company culture is easy to talk about and sometimes hard to execute. How intentional were you about culture while growing your business? And you mentioned that you went on a hiring binge. You had to hire people quite fast. That could mess up company
Yeah.
culture if you're not careful. What worked and what didn't work in terms of building culture?
Yeah, great question. So I was very intentional about company culture. We took that very seriously. And the reason why, before getting into the things that we did, is that when you have a strong organizational culture, things can come about naturally where certain patterns of behavior don't have to be forced. They're just natural. So if part of your culture is to provide high quality service, that needs to happen naturally. Can't be forced. And a culture is really patterns of behavior that people have within a group, right? I believe it was Peter Drucker that said, "A culture eats strategy for breakfast." Right?
That's good.
And it's yeah, it is good. And the reason why say that comes about, why that's the case, is because when things happen naturally, when it's like when you're riding a bike and you've learned how to ride a bike and you're just moving forward naturally, you don't have to think about pedaling and balancing and steering. That you just go, right?
Yeah.
But if things are forced and you're always constantly have to think about things, it's just the results aren't going to be the same.
Yeah.
So it was very intentional, and how we went about it is really defining what we stood for. We took the time to articulate what I call the verbal brand expression of our company, and then from that we would do the visual brand expression that would reinforce the verbal articulation of that. And it's a lot of people are familiar now with at least a certain level of brand strategy, but it can go really deep. It goes beyond just say a mission statement and values, right? One thing we did is really define a purpose. There's like a higher level of why we even do the work that we do. Like, how does it matter? Because people, they want to feel not only valued, but that their work matters, especially today. So defining that and all the other standard things, but really, what are things that we want to have happen that are going to be ongoing patterns of behavior that we want to happen naturally, that people don't even have to think about, it's just ingrained in them. So all that was defined. And then every new hire that came on board, I would meet with them as we had like a 2-week onboarding process. And, towards the end of that process, I would meet with every new hire and I'd go through that organizational brand culture document. And I would go through not the visual expression, I'd go through the verbal expression, taking them through, this is what we stand for. This is the expectation. And people really appreciated that, actually. A lot of them would comment like, wow, this is great. And I'm really surprised that you even take the time to do this. But it was because it was that important. And that wasn't the only thing. It was just, we would reinforce the culture on an ongoing basis in a variety of ways, especially at our quarterly all staff meetings. We'd always touch upon an aspect of our culture that we wanted to reinforce.
I saw a video that you did. It was either on a podcast or on your website. I can't remember where. You describe yourself as a very calm person, slow to anger. And you were having one of those days where, one of those marathon days that went into the night. And one of your employees kind of snapped at you. And that led to an uncharacteristic response. Tell me and my audience that story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
You can't forget it. I don't want to bring up any PTSD moments here, but
that guy. I don't like that guy. That
your word
Craig
for
guy.
It was ugly.
Yeah, ugly. It's ugly. Yeah, ugly Craig. I don't like that guy. There was another word. Actually, yeah. Okay, I'll tell the story and then I'll say what I was referred to as after that. So yes, it was in the evening on a deadline with a project, had to get some stuff done. And so there was a group of us working on this project, and we were sitting around the table going over things. And yes, one of the team members expressed his frustration with having to be there, how it's taking away time from his family. And it was just like that little spark that ignited an explosion in me. Because I was just, at the time, I just wasn't myself. I was just so impatient, frustrated, short-fused. Again, coming from all the pressures and demands of running a really fast-growing company. I think that was our second year on the Inc. 5000 list. And juggling
you were pressured
family
and
life.
confused, but you were also, up to that moment at least, holding it all in, right?
Yes, 100%.
No
holding
release.
It all in.
Yeah.
No release at all. And working constantly and no release, nothing. I wasn't taking care of myself in any aspect. It was all about everybody else. I didn't prioritize myself. That was one of the challenges there. And so, I snapped. I just lost it. Just yelling at the top of my lungs, totally uncalled for, inappropriate, and yelling at, unloaded on that guy, and then started to unload on everybody else.
You still had ammo in the chamber, right? You're gonna empty it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It was like a tank just blowing up buildings after buildings. It went on for a while. I don't know. It was probably a couple minutes, but it seemed like it was a lot longer than that. And it was just ugly. Yeah, it was ugly. And so then afterwards, the word around the office was, beware of evil Craig. And I remember when I heard that.
Evil Craig.
Evil Craig. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay.
See, that's even worse than mean Craig or bad-tempered Craig. I mean, evil, man, they just went for the heart at that point. Right?
They did. And when I heard it, I was like, whoa, I was like taken aback. But then I was like, okay, all right, I get it. Like I was being reflective and trying, being objective about it. Okay, I get it. Yeah. All right. And I knew, I was like, all right, I gotta make a change here. Took me a while, and through just one thing led to another, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it soon. But I started to make that change,
But you reached out to
and
someone who gave you a recommendation, right? Like, come with
yeah,
me
yeah, and
or try this or
it
something.
just, yeah, it just kind of happened, in an interesting. I like to refer to it as just like divine timing. It just happened naturally, organically. A friend of mine that I was doing some work with, he said, "Hey, why don't you go check this dude out? He does this energy work, and it's really interesting. I think you could benefit from it." And I said, "All right, let me check it out."
Was your
So,
first thought like, "Oh my God, this is going to be nutty," or were you naturally open to it, or were you desperately open to anything, or what was your mindset going into it, not knowing what you didn't know?
yeah, and I was open minded to it
Okay,
because, I was just I've overall historically been pretty open minded to a
all right,
number of just alternative type of topics and history and things of that nature. So, but still wasn't wasn't deep in that world or anything like that. And so I looked up the guy's website. And I thought, oh, he does Chinese medical qigong. That's interesting. And I had experience with qigong through my martial arts days when I studied Chinese kung fu. But the qigong that I learned was in a martial context,
yeah.
and more health and wellness in a martial context. Um, and I was like, well, that's interesting. I was intrigued. And I was like, I wonder if he's the real deal.
Is
All
your
right, I got to
background
go check this
Eastern
guy out.
medicine? Don't you have is it a, I don't know if it's an MD or a PhD, but isn't it in some type of alternative medicine or something?
Chinese energetic medicine, and it
Okay.
actually all started with this moment
Oh, you
that got
hadn't
me on
had
this
that at that
path.
point.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yes,
Okay. So this was
yep.
a Genesis moment here.
It was big time. So I was intrigued. I was like, God, I wonder if this guy's the real deal because that's really rare. I had never met anyone in my life that could do that work. So I went to see him and had this great experience. And then I said, all right, let me continue this. And I went once a month for 6 months. And I went from feeling just not myself and unbalanced and off centered to the complete opposite, where I was really back to my old self, feeling centered and balanced and able to function amidst the chaos and handle the pressure and navigate that. Because, all the stress and pressures and events and circumstances, they don't stop, they just keep coming at you. But I was just much more myself again and able to, like, historically, I was always able, calm, cool, collected, able to function amidst the chaos. But again, through all the buildup of pressures and growth and all that, I just am not taking care of myself. It just compounds. So this was, I'd already started working a little bit on my health at that point, but not too much. And this was a major step to taking care of myself. So after that 6 months, this gentleman asked me if I wanted to learn uh, this practice, and I said absolutely, without hesitation. So I began training in 2015 and started taking a deep dive into medical qigong or Chinese energetic medicine. And then once I sold the company, I enrolled and then left. I enrolled in this doctorate program for Chinese energetic medicine. But I credit Qigong to really getting me back to myself and being able to maintain that on a ongoing basis amidst even growing pressures, because over the next 3 years, we landed on the Inc. 5000 list 3 more times. And it's harder to get on that list each year, to keep it going. And then led to keep continuing to grow the company and to eventually having that capstone of success with the exit. So I really credit that practice
I'm going to
of
push back
Qigong.
a tiny bit on what you said
Yes.
because I think you're underrating yourself. Let me explain.
Mm.
You mentioned that through Qigong, it kind of brought you back to your old self.
Yes.
Your old self worked to the point where you end up exploding on people and you became evil Craig, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that
Yep.
was in your old self. I'm guessing that it not only moved you back to center, ground zero, which is old Craig, with the potential of becoming evil Craig if the right buttons are pushed, to maybe even the pendulum swung past that, so that under the exact same circumstances, that wouldn't happen to you again. Do you think that's accurate?
If there was a repeat of that same situation,
Yeah.
I would have been much more calmer about that.
Right.
I could have got angry and or frustrated,
Sure.
but I probably would have definitely paused
You would
and
have
handled
processed
it
it
a
different.
different way.
You would have the
Yes,
release
yes,
tools
yeah,
that you didn't have before.
100%,
So it
100%.
sounds like it made
Yeah.
you a better Craig than you originally
Yes.
were. That's the point I'm making.
Oh, I see. I see.
As
what you're
opposed to
saying.
bringing you back to what you were just before.
Yeah,
It actually
I like
improved the
that.
Craig. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say you're correct. So because there's the aspect of myself, but we're always evolving. So I actually would agree with that statement that not only did I get back to myself, but it also helped me to evolve to a better version of
New and
myself.
improved. Less evil.
Yeah.
Less evil.
Yes. Yes. More light, less
Yeah,
darkness.
exactly. After years of running a fast-growing company, you shifted into a deeper personal work, which is what you're doing now. What prompted you for that transition? You could have just cashed your check and bought a house on a beach and fished along the shore for the rest of your life, played golf for the rest of your life, whatever you're into, bought a bigger boat, etc. What prompted that transition and to continue the work and kind of Craig 2.0? What prompted the transition, and what do you think you were missing earlier in your career, where instead of just cashing out and retiring, you embraced an entirely new adventure?
Yeah, well, I would say there's a few things. One, it's hard for me just to sit around and do nothing and not be productive. It's just not me. And then two, I developed such a passion for this energy work, and when I started training in 2015 and started learning, about 6 months later, I started doing that actual work, starting to work on people. And so far the past 10 years, I've been doing one-on-one energy work with people. I've done over 1,000 sessions. And I was doing that while I was running my company. So I was doing that on the weekends.
That's your side
sometimes.
hustle.
Yeah, I was just but it was so fascinating and interesting to me, and what it was doing for me and the profound impact that it had on me. I was just wanting to learn that craft. And now, when I started this new chapter in life, I just want to pursue that passion and to be of service to others. And I've prioritized my own personal care so that I can have the energy to be of service to others. I have a saying in my book that I wrote, be of service to self so you can be of service to others for a lifetime. Because now I feel like I did in my 20s, which was much different than when I was in my mid-40s there, early 40s, mid-40s, really, really being tired. And there's a whole other aspect we can talk about if we get to it about health. But it had such a profound impact on me. I just want to share it with others. I just want to share my experience and what I have to offer to other people. I just don't want to sit around and just be self-indulgent.
Well, a couple of points in response. One is I used to belong to a CEO peer group where basically a bunch of company founders would get together once a month and lie to each other about how well they're doing, right? And I say that somewhat facetiously, but there's a little bit of truth to it. But we would have a speaker come in, usually someone trying to hawk a book or something, and they would come in and speak to our group. And there was one particular speaker, which was really good. I mean, all these years later, it stuck with me. And his whole shtick was exit strategies. Even the day you start your business, you should think about an exit strategy. Not because you plan on getting out of it, but build the business so it doesn't rely on you. Build the business with documented processes and things like that. So if something either happens to you involuntarily or you decide that it's time to go, it's a package. It's you got a pretty bow on it, and anyone can take it over. But one of the bits of advice he gave, which didn't apply to me until 20, 30 years later, was once you exit, you have to have a reason to get up every morning. A reason, a cadence of activity, whether it's gardening, golfing, being a greeter at Walmart, being a candy striper at a hospital, it could be anything. It has to be almost like a job, because the statistics show that the average lifespan after one retires is about 7 years. If they're not working, if they're just sitting around the house, a lot of entrepreneurs will sell their business and then take a gap year. And just like college, when kids leave high school and they take their gap year before college, most of them don't go to college, right? They get sucked into the stuff of the world. And I think the same can happen with retirement. So the fact that you left your business and pretty immediately started turning your side hustle into a primary business is pretty good. That goes for longevity, in your world. Also, what I'm getting about you is both your businesses have had a culture of service. You were passionate about music, and you wanted to help musicians level the playing field, as you said, and get access to exposure that formerly only Capitol Records and companies like that could do. Which was way, way ahead of its time. And, most companies that are pioneers, way ahead of their time, aren't the ones that ultimately are, major successes. It's the big companies that go, look at what Craig's doing. He's onto something. Let's throw everything we have at that. And they kind of take it over. But it's interesting, both your businesses, the music business, the putting artists on the map kind of business, and your current business are all helping people and kind of making the world a better place, one person at a time, or one musician at a time, or one business person at a time, which says a lot about your character. And I'm sure the company culture generally mimics the founder, and that's a good thing. Many entrepreneurs, you're welcome. Many entrepreneurs wear stress like a badge of honor. I can handle anything. Oh yeah, is that all you got? You just face it. You almost, I shouldn't say you. I almost manifested it. I was like ready. I was full of piss and vinegar, and I had something to prove. And there was all these, dad issues, and when I left my former employer and started my business, they sued me and lost, but it took pretty much all my startup money away. I was angry. I wanted revenge. I needed to prove something to my family, to my friends, to myself that I could do it. So I'm just like bull in a china shop. Bring it on. And it was stressful, but I channeled it in anger and working. I would go in on a Monday morning and not come home till Tuesday night. I mean, I was just like all in. And to me, there was a strange sense of relief, because I misequated being busy from being productive. And and I'm figuring, like, if I always have 1,000 things on my to-do list when I do go home, I felt oddly good about that, because what scares me more is not having anything to do. And so I just felt comfort in the craziness of being busy, which is not ultimately good for your health. I gained a ton of weight. I weigh about 200 pounds right now, but I was at like 270 at that point, working my butt off, eating crap. Most of my meals I ate, with the drink between my knees and a hamburger on my lap, in a car, driving with one hand. That was me, traveling around the world, pitching my stuff, eating on airplanes and airport restaurants, and very unhealthy. And that did play a role in, even though I was stressed, because I kind of was used to that feeling and almost fed off it. It did attack my creativity, and it attacked my reason, my sense of reasoning. And I was always angry and always looking for a fight. And that showed in many of the decisions I made that were fear-based, ego-based, revenge-based decisions, which felt good at the time. But, it was talk about, the saying, I cut off my nose to spite my face. It was all me that was taking the hit. Why do you think burnout and this sense of confusing busyness with success has become so normalized in human culture, but particularly in entrepreneurship?
Yeah. This is a really great topic. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I can totally relate to all those things that you said. I understand.
Been there, right?
Yeah. So I think there's the media, whether it's magazines, online news, entrepreneurship became a pretty popular thing actually, coming out of the .com boom and bust. We had shows like Shark Tank that came around, really started to
Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, all those things, yeah.
All those, right? Put a spotlight on entrepreneurship, which is great. But there also started to be like talk about hustle culture, right? And, side hustles and hustle culture and hustle this, hustle that. And and there's an aspect where it is what it is. And you gotta, it's not for everybody, and you gotta do what you gotta do. And sometimes you just gotta do what it takes, which is grinding it out. And the challenge becomes when it becomes such a habit, and like what you're describing, I get it, where you're just constantly going and it's everybody else and never yourself, and I gained weight also, just like what you had talked about. I came down with diabetes because of that lifestyle, exactly what you described.
Type 2, type 2 I take.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes, type 2.
Me too.
Okay, well, what about that? Yeah,
but I didn't discover it until I lost 65, 70 pounds. And then I discovered it. Yeah,
okay.
I didn't even discover it. I had to have a routine medical procedure, and part of that was anesthesia. So they gave me a blood test, and they canceled the procedure. And the doctor called me up and goes, "Yeah, I canceled. It was a colonoscopy." So he said, "I'm canceling the procedure." I'm like, "Thank you." And but why? He goes, "Well, you failed to put on your form you're diabetic." And I said, "This." I repeated my name. I said, "This is Mike Conrad. Are you sure you're calling the right?" Like Mike Conrad, because I am not a diabetic. And then he read me my numbers. He goes, "The hell you aren't." And
wow.
And
surprise.
I'll say verbatim what he told me because it's funny. He goes, "Yeah, you probably feel like shit." And I'm like, "Well, I do now." I didn't before, but I do now. But I had zero symptoms. So
interesting.
Go figure. But I think that was probably from obviously the weight, even though I had lost it. But probably even more so the stress associated with all of that. It paid a toll on my body, and of course my diet didn't help much either. But at any rate, it's funny. I guess that's part of the hidden cost of not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, that's right, 100%. And it's that entrepreneurial lifestyle that you can succumb to by not taking care of yourself, and all these bad habits of lack of sleep, bad dietary habits, all the things, right?
And we think we're being successful. That's the irony.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I can't die. I'm successful. Right.
Yeah, it's a ticking time bomb. Like I'm tough. I can handle anything.
Yeah.
Just kind of like what you had said earlier. I was like, for me, it was like, I was like super in shape when I started the company from all the martial arts I was doing. It was tough, right? I could handle all kinds of things, but it just sneaks up on you, and suddenly you're this different person. You're not healthy, and you can succumb to any sort of chronic condition. And for me, I found out I hadn't gone to the doctor for probably like 10, 15 years or something like that, typical dude stuff. And one day I just went in because I was starting to work on my health, and, I just started Qigong and or maybe I was like a year or two into it, and I was starting to feel better. But I actually had the symptoms of diabetes. I had foggy brain. I was getting tired at night and crashing on the couch right after eating. Yeah, all these things that I just wasn't aware of. And I thought it was strange, and that's why I started working on things. And Qigong definitely helped, but I was still experiencing certain symptoms. And then I said, yeah, I'm going to go and take a blood panel after this one guy recommended it. And then the doctor told me, yeah, good news and some not so good news for you. She went through all the good stuff. And at the very end, yeah, you have diabetes. What? So that was a big kick in the butt. And that's when I really decided, all right, I have to change. I have to take care of myself. So that's where I made my service to self a priority. And I reversed it naturally, 100%, no drugs.
Nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations. That's great.
thank you. So
tell me about your company. The name, I think the name of your company was like CC, or at least that was the logo I saw.
C
right?
squared. Yeah, C squared.
C squared. That's right.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yes.
I like that.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of people called me that, so it's kind of easy. Yeah, actually, I kind of like it. So yeah, let's just go C squared.
No, that's pretty cool. So C squared, is it an in-person company, a virtual company, both? I mean, how do you, first of all, tell me and my audience what services you provide your clients, and then how you provide those services.
Sure. So what I do today is I am of service as a business mentor, as say one silo, and under that business mentorship, I provide advisory, consulting, and executive coaching services. So those are, say, like the three service branches. And, people can define that as different ways. Advisory services is just providing that business counsel, being a sounding board and providing advice and strategic advice is what was to how to navigate.
Almost like part of their board of directors, but
you're right, yeah,
but
kind of
specific
like that.
For that one purpose.
Yes. And then consulting would be that plus me actually getting my hands dirty and doing some work, like maybe formulating, some business strategies or marketing strategy, things of that nature. And then the executive coaching is really more working with the individual. And then I have say 3 pillars: mindset, mastery, and energetics. And that's where I bring in the Qigong as energetic practices, which sets me apart from many of the other people out there because of what I experienced and what it did for me, that I'm bringing that into the table to help the individual perform to a higher level. So that's my business mentorship. And then the other area, so there's the Chinese energy medicine that I have clients that come in just for that. And then I also teach online and also in person too. So I have classes, programs for people that are really wanting to dive into that work in its own category. I also have a program called Qigong for Business Professionals, which is catered towards the entrepreneur and the founder, the CEO, and that's like a one and done, unless they get really passionate about it, like I did, and they can go into the other track. But those courses, a lot of those are 12-week programs. Once they get going, they kind of shorten to about 9 weeks. But those are conducted online, a little bit of in person. I also do some workshops. So I've essentially taken my one-to-one work there, and now I'm going one-to-many. So that's because I want to have a bigger impact and reach more people. And plus, it just can be more sustainable and able to just help me do more and reach more people in that manner.
So how do you handle, I'm sure this has happened, maybe it hasn't, but maybe it's just my cynical brain. Someone comes to you for some business advice. They want some business coaching, some counsel, some advisory stuff. And then you talk about Qigong and they go, whoa, hocus pocus, Chinese weird medicine stuff. Next thing you know, I'm going to be swallowing frogs and whatever. I mean, do you get that level of kind of ignorance-based hesitation and cynicism, or by the time they come to you, are they like ready for anything?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm pretty I take an approach to just let things happen naturally. And if some people I can gauge that they're just, this is just not them. They're, which is nothing wrong. Everyone, there's no judgment. It's just some
Right.
people are open to this stuff and others aren't, and that's okay. If it's not for them, I'm not going to force anything on anybody. I just keep it strictly business. But if through conversation, people seem a little open, receptive, interested, then it's like, well, let's let me share.
Yeah.
And
That's great. So
yeah.
you're not attached to the outcome. You're a magnet.
Yes.
You have an example in your own life. If people see that, I mean, it's hard not to know that if you just go on your website. I mean, it's a heavy influence there. So they know going in, if they hadn't heard of you before, that there's something beyond just traditional, business advice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. If someone was living in rural Kansas, I don't know why I'm picking rural Kansas, but I'm just making an assumption here, may not be accurate.
Yeah.
And there's no Qigong practitioners there. Or maybe in this particular town, there's no one of even Asian descent there. What options do they have if they follow you online, if they do some virtual work with you? How much can you teach them about that practice without actually having to have some practitioner, standing next to them?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. It's interesting because I have students here locally in Southern California, but I have students on the East Coast, students in Arizona, and it's been working out great. I just started teaching a year ago, and so far so good. And the 90% of it's been online, and there's some inherent challenges when teaching online because you're not physically there to see exact postures and make really micro adjustments, right? However, it's been working out really well because, and it's interesting because some of my students they've taken other courses, whether in person or virtual or a combination of both, and I've been getting fantastic feedback on my approach on the way I go about it, especially with the live classes and how much attention I pay towards making sure I'm watching everybody, and from I know what to look for, so I'm able to. It's still not the same as if I was in person, but that's why I the people that are really want to take the deeper dive and go on a deeper level, then that's when I go at the end of, say, the next program, we're going to have one in-person class for 6 hours. So that's how that program ends. So then I'm able to check. But so far it's been really great. I also have some self-recorded courses. So it's like self-directed. You just go in and watch the videos. That's like, I have a taste of Qigong, it's called. And there's about 45, 50 minutes worth of instructions of various exercises, and provides people with a sample. And if they want to take the deeper dive, then they can sign up for one of my live programs.
A little Qigong tapas bar, right? Just a sampler platter. That's great.
I like that.
We are starting to run out of time, so just a couple more questions. If you could speak to your younger entrepreneurial self, so Craig having a conversation with Craig, younger Craig, at the height of your growth, things are just rocking, you're feeling good. What advice would you give to your younger self that you wish you had listened to sooner?
It's imperative that you take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Imperative. Yeah.
This was pre-diabetic Craig you were talking about, talking to. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. If you consider yourself a healer, which obviously in many contexts you would, you got to heal the healer before the healer can heal, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Well, that almost sounds like something that should belong on a T-shirt.
I like it.
Last question, how did you define success when you first started your business, and how do you define it today?
That's a really good question too. Yeah, when I started the company, I was 25, right? And it was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to make so much money. Going to be so loaded. And in like 2 or 3 years here, it's going to be so awesome, right? And
2 or 3 years, yeah, exactly.
Right. you're like grinding and nothing's happening, and it's just like poor and like this is. Am I stupid? Am I crazy? Like there's a time where I almost quit. Like I was moments away from quitting actually. So yeah, that changes your perspective in a healthy way. Actually, it's the struggle. That's where there's the silver lining to those clouds, right? Today success can mean a lot of things to different people, but obviously there's material success, which is great. You got to appreciate those things, and it's great, but not be like so attached to that, because then what's a deeper meaning in life, and a higher purpose. For me, success is are you fulfilled? Do you have a sense of fulfillment? And with that, what brings in my mind, what brings fulfillment is if you have the freedom of time to pursue your purpose.
Yeah. People have asked me, did you ever, in your earlier business days, did you ever want to quit? I said, only on days that ended in day. Right. Yeah. Other than that, no. But otherwise, it was, pretty much every day, at some point every day, not all day, but at some point every day in the early days. So for my listening or viewing audience who would like to get more information on my friend here, Craig Squared, Craig Cooke, at C Squared, if you'd like to get more information, if you're watching this on YouTube, look down here where it says see more, and there will be a link to that website there. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, look at that podcast app and you'll find out how to get a hold of Craig through his business there. Craig Cooke, welcome. Thank you so much for welcome. We're starting all over again, Craig. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for providing great advice. Thanks even more for the service you provide us entrepreneurs. I think, as I said earlier, you definitely have a history of service-based businesses, and I appreciate that. I respect you for that, and continued success to you, man. I think you've got a great business model, and you've got a great culture and mentality, and I think it cannot fail. So continued success.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that. Those are very kind words, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And before I wrap up, here's a few final thoughts. Entrepreneurship has a way of teaching lessons long after milestones are reached. Craig's story is a reminder that building a successful business is only part of the journey. The harder and often more important work is learning how to lead yourself through growth, pressure, and uncertainty without losing clarity or burning out in the process. Whether it's through experience, reflection, or practices like Qigong, what stood out to me in this conversation with Craig is his willingness to question the assumptions many entrepreneurs take for granted, especially the idea that stress and exhaustion are simply the price of success. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to think not just about how you're growing your business, but how you're sustaining yourself along the way. Now, that's a wrap. Thanks for being part of our Reluctant Entrepreneur family. We have been exceptionally busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. And one personal favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, consider giving us a like and subscribe. Those two simple clicks really help us expand our reach. If you're an entrepreneur or know someone who would make a great guest, I'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com to apply or recommend a guest. You can also reach me directly at mike@reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com. And of course, a very quick shameless plug if you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon and as an audiobook on both Audible and Amazon. Thanks again so much for listening or watching. Until next time, be unstoppable. I'll see you again soon.